All right, there we go. Hello, hello, hello out there, everyone. You're back with Let's Talk About It with Q. I'm listening. For starters, I always want to say hi to my listeners and thanks for supporting me. It means a lot. Today on my show, I have a very special, charismatic couple on to share their life experiences and how mental health has played a role in them. So let me get started by introducing and welcoming Suzanne and Declan Dewitt Hall to the show with us today. Uh, Suzanne Dewitt Hall, she's the author of Reaching for Hope, where true love where true love is a devotional series. Jamie the Germ Slayer, and Rumple Pimple Adventures for Kids. Her work is designed to shine the light of love into hearts darkened by discrimination and fear, which I think is just absolutely amazing and marvelous. Um, she lives with her beloved trans masculine spouse, Declan, two terriers, and a cat named Chicken. Together as a couple, they've done multiple interviews about transitioning as a couple. Welcome to the show, guys. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you? We're so glad to be here with you.
Good. I'm doing really good. I'm really excited about the interview and can't wait to talk to you guys. Now, I can only imagine the kind of mental health strains that must put on someone who's trying to figure out exactly who they are and where they fit in. So for starters, tell us a little bit of your histories and your backstories and how you came to be, kind of.
Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. So Declan and I became a couple about 12 years ago. Is that right? Roughly.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional household. My folks divorced when I was a teen.
Okay.
I started dating the guy who would become my husband when I was 15.
Wow.
Never had access to any kind of mental health counseling. No, yeah, I started dating him then. I almost thought I said I got married at 15, which would be really bad. Did not do that. But really didn't have any access to mental health kind of information or services until I became an adult. And then I saw a counselor a couple of times, did some work, but I was kind of too young to really do a lot with it, I think.
Yeah.
Looking back now. And then I'm trying to think of the sort of my mental health journey. My marriage was very dysfunctional, and we stayed married until about the time I met Declan. And throughout that dysfunction, I was self-medicating with alcohol at one point. I pulled back out of that because I recognized the destructiveness of it.
Yeah.
At about the time I started going to a church, which gave me a lot of the things that my life was lacking: community, some purpose, sort of an internal sense of value and connection with something, bigger than me, which I was sort of desperate for, I think. So, and then, that was about the point at which you came into my life. So I figured I'd just give you sort of my mental health backstory.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And how did you guys meet?
Kind of backstory. We met at the church that I had been to.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and we had both been very involved in the churches that we were attending. In a variety of ways. We met in a patriarchal, socially conservative church and began to be friends. And at that point, this is kick over your story because this is your story.
Well, this is about where we get kicked out of church, but we can get back to that. Once there was a rumor that it was like we weren't welcome to that church anymore.
Oh gosh.
But before, I had grown up in a military family. I was the oldest of 5, had a lot of emotional abuse and physical abuse from my father. Didn't address any of that until I was an adult. But looking back at my 2+ years of therapy and in and out of psychiatric hospitals, I realized that it was my father plus how I felt towards men. And I think looking back, the reality was that I was transgender and that couldn't come to the surface. I was my whole life pretending to be what aligned with my body, not who I was.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it took its toll. So I went to a lot of counseling and married 2 men. And the last one I was married to, we went to this church that Suzanne was attending, and that's where we met. And our marriages were falling apart, and we started a friendship, and we worked together to do things for the church. And after we were kicked out of the church because of a rumor, just because we were close friends and our marriages were breaking up,
Yeah.
our relationship shifted, and we realized we were in love. And I always tell the joke, what happens when a Catholic meets a Baptist? They become Episcopalian.
I love it. That was good.
And it began, and we moved to New England together and
That's
started a life there.
wonderful. That's wonderful. And now, when did you start? When did you start going through the transition?
About a year ago now, to the world.
Okay.
Actively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now,
I'm going.
oh
Yeah.
no, you go ahead.
Yeah, it's been a slow thing. I've been very careful. Being almost 60, I tend to think more about how it affects everybody else instead of how it affects me. So I've been careful telling my children, telling my grandchildren how much I'm going to do at once, so it doesn't bother everybody else. So it's kind of, you still worry about everybody else, even though you're like, I want to take care of myself. At my age, I have grandchildren, and these kids have grown up calling me mom for 58 years. So
Yeah, well, no,
things are shifting, but they're.
And how supportive? How was the support and the transition of all that?
Well, I think that all of the kids except for one have been very supportive. One on their feet. The children have the best. I mean, it amazes me. I think the children will save us. They're so accepting, and they just get it. They get it. It's okay. There's nothing to them except they call me Nan Pop.
Oh, I like that. I like that one. Now, share. So from the beginning of your courtship, had there always been feelings of not completely feeling like yourself? Would you say?
I think I feel more like myself with Suzanne. If I've been more able to be myself, I felt it in the world. Going outside of our home has always been uncomfortable, and I haven't felt like I was looked at or accepted for who I was. But with her, I've always really kind of been who I am. I just haven't shifted I didn't shift my clothing, didn't, try to shift my voice and my name, things like that I'm doing now. I hadn't shifted, but my personality has pretty much always been the same.
Yeah. Now that's wonderful. Now, Suzanne, when did you start writing?
Oh gosh. I've done writing in and out of all of my life, in various kinds of forms. But I started devoting, kind of doing it full time about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's part of, something you asked a few minutes ago is like, how long have you been transitioning to Declan? And, I've got this Where to Love Is devotional series is affirming and inclusive for LGBTQIA plus people. And in all of my work, because we had to investigate what was happening with us as a couple, where we were at that point, Declan didn't really have terminology to realize that he was male. So, living as female, we thought that here these two women who are in a relationship, and what must God think based on what we had been taught by church. So we had to do a lot of deconstruction to figure all that out. And we translated, and we did that deconstruction kind of together, and still do for that matter. And because I'm a writer, I create, I work through some of my thinking in writing and created this first book, Where True Love Is. And then after that one, we saw a lot of pain in the trans community and a lot of exclusion. And so I wrote a book called Transfigured, which is a devotional for transgender and binary people. And so we're talking throughout all this, we're talking about this. Declan kind of is building this love as community online, particularly in Facebook, that offers support and affirmation for queer people. And so we're increasingly connected to the community and seeing struggles and constantly talking these things through. While Declan has been out for about a year, we have been, I think, and we've been sort of transitioning together throughout all these years. Wouldn't you say? Since the beginning of
when we first got together, we went to a therapist.
Oh,
She'd
okay.
come from probably a pretty strong Catholic background, and I'd come from a Southern Baptist. So now here I am, madly in love with someone of the same sex at the time, and we went to a therapist because I didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
You know, I'd been taught something different. The therapist just looked at us and said, frankly, if you need a label, make one up. Because I said, what am I? You know, I've always been heterosexual. What am I? Said, well, you could just make up a label if you want. It doesn't really matter.
That's true. You love who you love.
I awake.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But the way we did, you're like, this is wrong. And
What are
we
we supposed
fought
to
it
do
in the
with this?
beginning, but it was so right that we just couldn't fight it. I'd never gotten along or been as attracted to anyone like I was to her in my whole life.
And it probably just felt so right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, well, I guess you just kind of answered how did that weigh on your mental health as you were trying to figure out things. But so now, how long did it take for you guys to each, going back in history during your marriages, to kind of come out to your spouse about your decisions, and what was the reaction? Was it rough, or were they supportive, or how did that work out?
Well, both of our relationships when we became friends were in bad shape for very different reasons. But, you know, we were kind of at the end of our marriage. I was planning to just stay married until I had gotten to the point where I was going to stay married until my son graduated from high school. He was like a sophomore, junior, and waited out. And then my marriage kind of exploded, and yours, Declan's, was kind of in a similar state where it was already at the end. The husband had moved out of the house at that point. So it had been, it didn't go well for either of us. It went spectacularly badly for me. My ex,
you could laugh at it now.
Right.
Yeah. He's the kind of who really holds grudges. He holds on to darkness, I think, a bit. And I never like to say that much about him, but it was my relationship with my kids went through some bad years. And that's been restored. Thank God.
Oh, good.
But there was a lot of, it was an ugly, I would think you would call it an ugly divorce, wouldn't you? Yeah. It was not amicable.
Not amicable. Sometimes it never can be, regardless of the situation.
Just went a little bit back. I know. When you hear the stories where it goes smoothly, I'm shocked.
Me too, because I've been through divorce also, and it did not go smoothly, and it never, like, you would think that it'd be nice if we were in a world where it always could be, but that is not the case.
Right.
Now, so you guys said that you had gone to therapy. Did you feel like the therapy had, and I know you had said that the therapist had given you that actually really good piece of advice that if you need to label it how you need to label it. But did you feel like you got like enough out of the therapy that you felt like it was worth going, or like, did you continue to go for that long, or how did that work out for you?
Well, you know, the interesting thing when I look back on it, I had gone to therapy with my ex-husband, and it never seemed to work. We would go and go and go. We went for years and it didn't work. And then I became depressed. I ended up in the hospital. But with Suzanne, when we went, it was like she was affirming us. It was like she gave us things to do that were practical, that helped us think in a different way than we were thinking. That stinking thinking to something good, where when I went to therapist with him, it didn't work. And at one time she told us, when all these problems are gone, you're still going to have a problem.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and I should have thought going there because we're paying money, and she's really telling us this isn't going to work for you. No matter what I do, this isn't going to work for you. But we kept going for a long time. But with Suzanne, we didn't go very long, and it was very productive.
Yeah, we were pretty focused on what the issues we wanted to address. I mean, our relationship has, thank God, I mean, we're
It was
really
really good,
blessed.
but how do we tell the world? How do we deal with the outside world more?
And coping with the pain of being away from our children and
Mhm.
some of those, just the turmoil of divorce.
Yeah.
It was super effective. And, having the right counselor is so critical. I mean,
Oh,
we
yeah.
had such a good experience with her. And, we saw somebody more recently related to some challenges that one of our children is facing. And we want to be as effective and efficient and stay sane ourselves. And that, that counseling situation was so much more frustrating, and it all had to do with the counselor. And it's not that she wasn't fine. I
She
guess
didn't click well with us and what
it
we
just
wanted.
wasn't. It didn't feel like a big a super match. So I think
Right.
for
Yeah.
people who might be considering counseling, if you don't feel comfortable with a person, it's probably not the right person for you, because it makes such a huge difference.
Mm.
It definitely
Because
does.
the
I know
one
that over. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, because the one that Declan was describing was just so phenomenal.
Mm.
And how was it? And did you guys just happen to like stumble upon that person, or was they recommended to you, or?
Yeah, she was read by the people at the church that we were going to. So yeah, getting referrals, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Oh, it
doesn't
did. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I've found that over the years of different therapists, it definitely does make a difference. I know that it's almost because I mean you're having your relationship with that person, and you have to be able to click
Mm.
and be able to flow with them, and get. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything out of it.
Right. Yeah.
Now,
And we also went in very focused with what we wanted, wanted from it, which I think is useful if people are at a place where they recognize that. Like, we knew the issues and challenges that we were facing. So we went in right from the front and said, okay, this is what we want to accomplish. We want to make this situation better. We want this, this particular outcome. And if you go into counseling, if you know that up front, it can be really useful. Sometimes you don't know, sometimes you just know you're unhappy and you're stuck and you don't know what to do. So, it's kind of a different exercise in
yeah,
healing.
you kind of have a little bit more work to do in there.
Yeah, right. Break it all down.
And now, how did you guys ever need to go to counseling with your children as as things were changing over the years of the relationship and stuff?
We never did.
We didn't, and I think part of that is that there's been a lot of learning for me in a counseling environment, and I was in and out of hospitals for 2 years. So I went to
Okay.
CBT. There's been a lot of learning on my part about how to handle myself mentally and how to what to expect from others and where to draw those boundaries. And so I think that helped us a lot, and I'm a Stevens minister also. So there's this
Okay.
let them be where they are kind of thing. And, if they needed to seek counseling, we would, of course, support it.
We've urged it.
Definitely.
We've urged it a couple of times for some
Several
of
of our children. So we've got one child who's really on board with the whole therapy thing. We've got two of them actually.
them. Yeah.
My daughter is like therapy, and we've got another one who has had good success, and then we've got two where we're like therapy, and they put their fingers in their ears.
We got this.
We don't need that. I'm good.
Right. I'll figure it out. So.
Exactly. Now, Declan, do you mind if I ask you to share a little bit of your journey of the 2 years hospital stuff and kind of what you're going through? Because I can relate a little bit. I've spent some time in hospitals, and I'm actually about to go into it's called a IOP program, intensive outpatient program.
Mhm.
Just because I'm bipolar and I have borderline personality disorder and um ADHD, and then to top it off, really bad anxiety. Just a nice little
Ay,
mixture
ay, ay, I'm
of
sorry.
culminations. But so I feel like I'm at a time in my life where I just need that extra help. And so it's a day program, Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 12:30, and they'll do CBT, group therapy, and then meditation. I think was one of the other things on there. I'm still figuring out what the things are going to be offering to me, but I know that I'm getting ready. March 21st, I start the program, and I'm excited. I'm scared, but I'm excited. I'm scared to get to the nitty gritty, and at the same time, though, I'm relieved that maybe I'll get some relief from it. So, could you share a little bit of your journey with the
Sure.
hospitalizations and stuff?
I think it's important. It's really important to talk about because there's some really bad stuff out there about mental health and how we're
Mm-hmm.
helped. And I started with the same program you're going into. Um,
Okay.
and when I finished it, I went back into it several times. Then I went inpatient. I tried to commit suicide 12 times
Oh
in
my
2 years.
gosh. Oh my
I was
gosh.
in and out. Was borderline bipolar with anxiety, and I had a lot of rage issues.
Yeah.
So I went out of the hospital quite a bit for that time, and I went to CBT and DBT. Actually, in the inpatient program, the counselors seemed to like take me under their wing.
Oh,
They
okay.
were they're very caring about me. I got a lot of attention, and I don't know why. I thank God for it, but they were very attentive, and they would take me for walks and talk to me when other people were waiting to go into group. I mean, they just for some reason were drawn to helping me.
Oh, that's
Maybe they saw
wonderful.
my pain. I don't know what it was. We just kind of
Yeah.
clicked. But I've been on every kind of medicine you can be on, pretty much at that time. It was a while ago, but it always starts with Prozac and works its way. And I took anxiety medication. I took antipsychotics because of the bipolar, and
Yep.
those were to help me sleep. Yeah, so I've been down the whole road, and you know, it's so beneficial to people who need it. I mean, mental health should not be looked at the way it is. It just is what it is. And there's medicine and there's
Yes.
doctors out there to help you, and you should take advantage of it.
Mhm.
I think that if I hadn't taken advantage of it, it hadn't been put in, and if I didn't have good insurance, because my
Yep.
ex-husband had good insurance, so I went to a good hospital. I went to a private place that was really nice. I was threatened to be sent to state a couple of times when I didn't behave. But, but I mean, if it's there for you and you need it, you need to do it. I mean, I think I'd be dead. If I didn't go, I
Yeah.
would be dead because that's where I was headed. And I tried it a couple of times. And because I had a doctor and they knew what was going on, I was quickly rushed and taken care of, and by the end of it, I came out much more healthy and aware of what caused my issues than I was in the beginning. And I can look back on that time in those 2 years, and I don't like the fact I was away from my kids or that I was in the hospital or the things that I tried to do to myself, because depression is, because of what it is, it's such a selfish disease, but you don't realize it while you're
Yes.
in it.
No, you
It's
don't.
selfish to everybody else, but you can't control it. I saw a picture one time in art therapy where they said depression is like this, and it showed a person in the bottom of a mud pit with all the mud coming down in there, putting their hands, and then at some point the hands just go down and they give up because you can't get up that slimy wall by yourself. So,
Yes.
the counselors come in at that point and the medication comes in at that point. And so you got to change it. I mean, I had to change mine many times. And then all of a sudden, some people it's a miracle. I don't know whatever you want to call it. I didn't need medicine anymore and I was better. But I used
Oh,
a lot
wow.
of what I was taught mentally, the
Okay.
CBT, the DBT, those kind of things, and advantage of what I heard in therapy and good group sessions. And I think as I've gotten older, I've been able to use those in my life. I do a, whoa, wait a minute. I don't have the rage or the anger anymore. I try to
Oh,
think,
that's
I mean, all
wonderful.
of my emotions went to anger. And
Okay.
it's because I was angry about so many things in my life. So I had to
Yeah.
divide and say, no, wait a minute, are you angry or are you embarrassed? It's okay to be embarrassed. Don't take it to rage. It's okay to be angry. Just don't take it to
Yeah.
rage. You know,
Yeah.
so for 2 years, I was in and out, and I had a lot of therapy.
Yeah, no, I bet. I can only imagine. I know for me personally, like I've tried to commit suicide twice in my life, and it's been very hard. And part of the reason that I kind of am going into the program too is for a medication situation, because I don't know if I'm on what I need to be on, and I don't know if I'm on the right doses. And like you said, healthcare, if you don't have good insurance, it can be a struggle. Luckily, I have okay insurance, but I also have a psychiatrist who has a very heavy workload. We talk about 15 minutes a month. It's kind of hard to tell where I'm at or where she's at, and whether or not, and if you're not ready, like you said, if you're embarrassed or you're not ready to be true to yourself, it's kind of hard to get somebody else to be able to medicate you properly. So that's part of the reason also I'm going in there, is because I just know it's time to just kind of just bite the bullet and just open up some wounds that maybe I'm not ready to open up, but it's time. Because otherwise, who
Well,
knows? Like you said, who knows where it could go down the line if I don't take care of it with the depression and stuff like that. So
Right.
you're right. It's
That's what
very
I did.
important.
I went in several times for medication changes. And at that time, you get to go home. So it's home bed. You
Yep.
get the therapy, and they can evaluate your medication, see where you are at the end of the day. I think the day programs are fantastic.
Oh, good, good. Because I was really, and there I had the option of two different day programs, because we have two different facilities here. There's Johns Hopkins, which is where I'm going to be going to, and then there's another one called Shepherd Pratt. Yeah, I'm really lucky to be going to Johns Hopkins. I speak volumes. My mom used to work there as a psych nurse, and it's a really good program, she said, that they have there. But the other one was a all day program, and I have 10 and a 10 and a 12-year-old still at home with me. So I have an older child too, 22. She's already moved out, but it just worked out schedule wise better. The program was 9:30 to 12:30 as opposed to the 8 to 3 with the other program. And actually I think it's called PHP, partial hospitalization program, which I don't right now in my life. I feel like I'm not quite at that point. But if need be, then I'm going to work out the schedule that I need to go all day if I need to go all day. But I'm looking forward to it. I think that it's definitely time to get a hold of it, because I'm having trouble getting a hold of it myself. And I just think that it's so great that we have mental health facilities out there to help us like that, because there's so many people that are out here suffering for so many different reasons, and they don't have to be,
Yeah. One thing that I was thinking about when Declan was talking, and connects to what you just said, is mental health issues can be both, and I'm not sure how much you've covered in your other previous interviews. I'm sure a lot, but sometimes it can be so situationally connected. For me, I did some cutting when I was at my marriage was at its close to the worst. When I was at I did some cutting. I never tried to commit suicide, but I considered it. I thought about it. And so much of that had to do with my relationship. Now, a lot of it was, my own work too, and what I had to figure out, and my own views of myself, and, tons of stuff. But being in a bad situation, and Declan's marital situations were bad, and the fact that you were having to live undercover for your whole life is a bad, if health is a bad thing, all these negative contributors. And right now, here we are in continuing pandemic with global crisis, and so many things to be discouraged about, so much more increased isolation. I mean, the mental health detriment and cost of all that can trigger people who, if things were lighter, if the world was fluffier, might not be that stuff can just coexist within them, and it gets sort of triggered and exacerbated all this darkness that's in the world. So I think people more than ever probably right now need to be hearing your messages that mental health needs to be a priority. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be accepted as
Yes.
healthcare.
Yeah, right?
Before,
Definitely. Affordable. Yeah, the right conditions as well, cuz like you were saying, Declan, there's places that are not as lucky to be sent to, and there are definitely places out there that aren't giving people the right kind of care or not treating them properly while they're under their care.
Mhm.
And then people get discouraged. We've got a friend who is desperately depressed. She's been depressive on and off for the whole time we've known her, which is, over a decade. Right now, it is at such a dark place. And she had some therapy previously and had been on some antidepressants previously. She's also got pretty crippling anxiety.
Okay.
And now with the isolation, it has gotten so dark, and she doesn't think um, anything will help. And she's kind of just given up and figured it's her life. And we don't know how to help in that situation.
Yeah.
And people can get discouraged by situations that don't go well and then just stay in, and don't seek help, which actually might be out there.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And I definitely think you're right. The pandemic has definitely exacerbated a lot of people's mental health situations and brought on new mental health situations for many people. I had one of the people that I did interview, he does this really good, it's called Open Talk, and he's a psychology student in England. And he just during the pandemic, he said, you know what? I'm in school right now to be a therapist, but I feel like I could be helping people and reaching out as a friend right now. So he started this it's on Instagram called Open Talk, and it's just you can email him, you can message him just to talk. He
Wow.
puts a disclaimer out there that yeah, he's not a therapist yet, but at the same time everybody needs somebody. And even if you have no one to talk, he's there no matter what for you. And so I think that's just such
Wow.
a yeah, he really I think he's like 21 years old or something like that. Really great aspiring. He's gonna make a good therapist one day, definitely. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but
What a
and that's
heart.
part of
That's
I
noble.
know. I know. Well, that's part of the reason I started this podcast is because I just felt like one, I had really crippling anxiety as well. And one of the ways that I like to get over my anxiety is facing the fear of the anxiety, which is easy. It's not as easy as it is able to be. And back in the day, it used to be karaoke. That used to be my fear that I used to go out and sing in front of people. Yeah, it was fun, and usually and in my more manic times, that's what gave me the courage to get out there and do it. But now
Right.
I yeah, definitely. But now I just feel like I wanted to reach out and reach others who to let them know that they're not alone and everyone's going through something right now, regardless of everyone's situation might be different, but everyone is going through something, and there's always help out there. There's always someone to listen. There's always someone to talk to. There's always someone there, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that because it can be hard out here. It can definitely be hard out here, and depending on what your situation is, and for you, Declan, to go through life like not knowing who you are and trying to figure it out while just dealing with regular life too had to have been so hard. And I commend you for being able to learn how to be yourself because it's not easy. I'm one of those
Mhm.
people that I'm still trying to learn to find myself and trying to be, like you said, not embarrassed of myself. And so I
Mm.
commend you for that. That's such
Thank
a
you.
beautiful thing. A beautiful thing.
Well, thank you. I think it's interesting because I've seen in our work, True Love is Movement, I've seen more people depressed and needing help and resources since probably after the first year of Trump to now, going
Oh, I'm
from the
sure.
pandemic, really push people over the edge. They're just like they were there and they were holding on, and then there's too
Mhm.
much, and now we've got the world crisis, and so the numbers are picking up of the people that I'm seeing that we have to give resources to, and that I'm seeing are having some issues. With me
Yeah.
during pandemic was a good time for me to evaluate and be safe in coming out and being who I was, because
Yeah.
we really isolated, quarantined, and this person who I love so much is my main support system. And this is the person I was able to come out to. And I'm now discovering, where I want to go with that. What does masculinity look like to me? It doesn't look like what I saw growing up. What is it to me? Can I redefine that or define that as myself in the world? And I think that's what transgender people are doing for gender. They're helping people see that it's not one or the other. It's not a binary.
Exactly. I feel like our sexuality is a spectrum, like many things are, you fall in where you fall in, and there's no like right or wrong answer to it. It's it's who you are. And I think, and actually I want it for my listeners. So what exactly does it mean to be trans masculine, would you say?
For me, I've always known that things didn't fit. I just I wasn't who I was. My mom would say, put on a dress, and I hated dresses. You want to play with the Barbies? No, I want to go out and play baseball.
Yeah.
My gender identity inside me doesn't match the physical body that I'm born in. So that's pretty much what it is. So now I'm trying to have the two cohabitate together and figure out how much I have to change the physical to be comfortable, if any. There are some things that I change. How much will I do? I mean, that has to be something that's defined by each individual. What does your gender look like on the outside and the inside? How do you match it the best you can? And some people don't do any changes, and they just say, this is who I am. And some go all the way through surgery. So I haven't quite figured out how far I'm going to take it with the outer part of me. But the inner part of me is just blossoming and dancing into who I am, and that's fun.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh, that's so amazing.
Like this, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's interesting for us to talk about things that happened in the past and see how they connected to Declan's gender. Like we went to a wedding, and Declan was convinced that he had to wear a dress because of the training, and this is what girls are supposed to do. There's
a formal event
that Declan had worked so hard to overcome that innate sense of wrongness throughout your whole life, right?
I was a good actor.
And so when it came to situations where like gender performance went into overdrive, like a wedding or other circumstances like that, there would be this strong emotional reaction. So we went to this wedding, and I was saying, you don't have to wear this, it's not. And Declan was like, yes, I do. This is kind of the rule, which I'm like, okay, if that's what you want to do, because I didn't have a clue at this point. This was quite a long time ago.
Okay.
And putting on pantyhose triggered this emotional response.
Nearly killed me.
That I had never seen. At the time, it was half comical and half like, oh my God. Because I had just never seen you get that worked up about something that seemed so silly.
So simple.
And looking back now, it's like, it wasn't just that they were uncomfortable, because let's be honest, pantyhose are not comfortable.
No, they're really not at all. Nobody really enjoys to wear them.
Nobody really wants to. Exactly. But that it wasn't about the things that you were expressing was like the discomfort, the physical discomfort of it. It was that you were putting yourself into this uber feminine disguise that had just, like day-to-day life, you would wear jeans and you would wear shirts, and it was you presented as female, but it was not like the uber femininity. And here was this thing where you had to go like full bore. And now looking back, we see, I can see, well, it wasn't about the pantyhose. It was about this whole flippin' thing, and that you could be in disguise for. And I think that when it comes to, so that definitely comes into play for trans people more broadly. I'm sure it comes into gay people who are, can't be out, and they have to like, they feel like they have to date and marry a sex that they're not attracted to. And I mean, imagine all those difficulties and challenges and mental health problems that come up from having to try to maintain that falseness, a lot of times out of love for other people. That's a lot of emotional strain.
Oh, I'm sure. I can only, and it's funny because where I go to the doctor's office that I go to, they have actually a really big um, community of specific doctors to help the LGBT community and transitioning
Oh,
and whatever actually and whatever kind of mental health and I particularly love this doctor's office because they are so adamant about providing specific health care for that community because of the fact that there are so many mental health issues that aren't worked out because it's not it's not accepted enough in our community in our society yet, and it's a shame that that's the case. I mean, and I don't know how long it's going to take. It's almost like, I mean, it is like sexism and racism and all those other things. It's another thing that we have
right,
to combat in our society of human and the human race, where we shouldn't even have to combat it in the first place. But it's
right.
unfortunately something that has to be combated, and I commend my doctor's office for giving to have the resources that everyone in that community needs.
Yeah, that's awesome. I look to, we're not big sci-fi fans. We're not big followers or space geeks, but you look at some of these shows like, Star Trek and maybe in Star Wars, I don't know, but it seems like the gender presentation has shifted so much in the future where people are just people and the uniforms are just uniforms. Everybody wears the same thing. And, and that the race and ethnicity is like all sort of merged and,
Hmm.
the hold out hope that that is where the future. I like that that is the vision of the future for so much of sci-fi vision. A lot of it's baked in. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping it
no, that
happens
makes
fast.
you're right. You're right. And it's funny where you're talking about gender roles and stuff like that. And I used to be a preschool teacher and I remember that there was this one teacher that we always had that would not let the boys go into housekeeping or play with the babies or vice versa. The girls weren't allowed.
Wow.
Yes, and it used to burn me up, and I used to go and complain about this teacher every chance I got, and not complain, but speak up for the children, really. Because
Yeah.
who are you
Right.
to tell a child that they can't play with a certain toy because of the sex that they are? And at the same
Right.
time, whatever gender you are, you would want them to know how to pick up a baby. Like at the same, you know what I mean? Like
Seriously.
a female is not the only person that picks up a baby and takes care of a baby. Everybody can pick up a baby and take care of a baby, or everybody can build a house with blocks. Everybody can make a meal. These are not gender specific things. And we just had this one teacher and to this day, recently, I've had several people around make those opinions as like parental before they've become parents. Oh, well, I'm never going to let my son play with a baby doll, and it's like that doesn't even
Yikes.
make sense. It doesn't even make sense to me or compute in my brain how that can be okay or looked upon as a gender specific thing. And there's so many things out in our world that aren't gender specific, and a lot of things I feel like they aren't gender specific, and I feel like now there's so many people in so many different facets of music, literature, just different things that are bending those rules for us. There's like in the music world, and so I listen to all genres of music, but one of the genres that I do listen to is hip hop or rap, and there's been a lot of different flack for different rap artists and musicians that have perhaps been a man that wears a dress or has come out as being gay and has continued to want to be in that musician role, and people have been giving them flack, or some have actually been more accepting in the hip hop community, which I think is a really big thing, because sometimes in that community it's definitely not something that is very accepted. So I think we're
Right.
making
Right.
we're
Right.
making
Gender
headway as
norms are sort of
humans.
strong.
Yeah, we're making
Slow.
headway as humans slowly. It's slowly happening, and I really
Right.
hope that it just continues to flower and blossom, because we can't keep going on like this. We just can't.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think
Go ahead.
I think that out of the whole acronym of the LGBTQIA movement right now, it feels to me that the ones that are being given the hardest time and are having the hardest time living in our society in this country are transgender people. I mean, with all the bills that have been enacted against us. And just, I mean, you can't go in public and go to the bathroom. We have to find a place that has, like family restrooms for me to feel comfortable to go to the bathroom. So, I mean, there's that. Where do you go to the bathroom? Are you going to get beat up in the bathroom? That kind of thing.
Yeah. And Suzanne, I read your blog that you wrote on that. So that was a really good blog that you wrote on that about going to the bathroom and stuff. And I as a heterosexual female didn't not that I didn't think about it, but I didn't think about that, about being afraid to get beat up in the bathroom or sexually accosted or anything like that because of the bathroom that you choose. Such a simple thing that shouldn't have to be such a scary decision to make.
Yeah. And for young people, I'm working on a book now. The entry that you were talking about, the bathroom entry, was in a book I wrote called Reaching for Hope, which is a book for the partners of trans people who are trying to figure out how to move forward with the news that their beloved person is trans. And I'm working on one for parents and families now. And so I was asking people, how do they manage with their kids? Because it's hard enough, when Declan and I are out and the concerns that are raised about how to handle it. But let's say you've got a trans son who's 12 or 13, right?
Yeah.
They might have a small build and they're supposed to go into the which is the better place for them to be. They're not going to want to be in the women's room, but how unsafe is it for them to go in the men's room? Or, it's very difficult. It raises all kinds of challenges.
There are a lot of support groups on Facebook for that. And, Suzanne and I have worked through it almost like perfectly. I just don't know how. It's communication, I think. We communicate so well that I'll come up to her and say, I think this, or I feel this. And she'll listen to me and she'll talk it through with me. And she saw that the need was out there for other people to do it. There are a lot of problems in transgender couples. It's not often that I see both are transgender, but when one is, and they've either been married or they've been dating for a while, it comes with its own unique situations, so they have to be able to talk things through. And her book it's the only one like it. So it's finally someone's written about that, and people are being very blessed by it. And they're saying, we can talk about this now because of your book. I read your book, and you know what? I can ask them this, and the relationships are doing better. The ones that I'm seeing that are talking about it, because it just came out a little bit ago. But communication, I think, is so essential with couples and families. And you're going to have some that just aren't going to work out, or the family's not going to accept you. So you've got to have somebody. You've got to have a tribe person. You've got to have a counselor. You've got to have somebody you can talk to, because it's a very difficult process emotionally for a transgender person. And I think of myself as very emotionally healthy, and I've had a lot of training and work to get to that place.
Yeah.
But every other day I want to go back in the closet because of the world, not because of me, because I'm really happy being out. But the world makes me want to run back in the closet. So it makes it easier for everybody else around me to live. So just to be able to talk with somebody about that, or for them to encourage you to be yourself, and that's the best person you can be, is to be yourself. That you're going to give more to the world as yourself than pretending to be somebody else and acting. So
definitely,
the book is really helping with that. And these discussion groups, these support groups online are helping. I mean, there's people out there that you can talk to.
That's so wonderful. And I really love that you're about to make a book for family and for children and stuff like that, because I think that that's such a big thing. And I want to get your opinions, guys, on, because there's a big, now I don't know if there's a big controversy or not, but for children that are coming out and figuring out that they're trans and stuff, I think that there's I've heard so many different comments or controversial opinions about it. And I just feel like somebody doesn't know who, like, somebody knows who they are. You know what I mean? And I went as a preschool teacher, when I was a preschool teacher, I always could kind of see who a child was, because a child is very pure and is able to, you know what they mean? They know who, not that they know who they are. How am I trying to say this? They kind of know who they are naturally, but society puts these things on them or tries to fit them into a box. And I think that they get jaded along the way of trying to figure themselves out. And I think that there's a big controversy about whether or not you should let your child transition and stuff like that. And I think that it's really important and good that you're making a book about that, because I think it's going to be really helpful for families.
Yeah, the reality is that affirming a young person's gender identity saves lives. That's the
Yes.
bottom line.
Yes.
Suicide rates, trans kids is quite high, and having people affirm them reduces the levels of suicide. So, I think that there's a number of things in play. I think that we're at a point in time where in some communities, there's a lot of discussion about gender, and kids are realizing they don't have to be in the binary. And
Hmm.
so some kids are going to indeed be trying to play with the idea and figure it out.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
kids are trans at the core and are absolutely out of sync with their,
Hmm.
the sex they were assigned at birth is definitely out of sync with the gender that society, the way gender is stereotyped by society. And there's everything in between. But the reality is that if you do have a young person and they are questioning, affirming them in that has the potential to save their life. Now,
Yes.
what happens later happens later. And often with gender, it can be an exploration, because the one thing that a person typically knows is that something is not right. Um,
Hmm.
and it could be that they'll, like, some trans people will like they'll say that they, with the pronouns they want to use, are, let's say, went from she to he. And then as they continue to explore, they realize, you know what, I'm actually more comfortable being neither, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not really a super he, and I'm not really a super she. I'm kind of in the middle, and decide, okay, that's what fits me. That's what describes who I am, and that's okay. Um, so there can be shifts, and so as a parent, all of that can be confusing, can be scary. There's a ton of unknowns, but
Hmm.
there's lots of information out there to help you get to knowledge. And the most important thing early on is affirming them, that you accept them, that you love them, that you are with them, and that has the potential to save their life. I just can't overstate that enough. It's just reality. There are too many stories of people, young people, who just can't take it, and they kill themselves. And
No, and
that's not
you're
okay.
right. Yeah, no, that is not okay at all. And I've been well, I haven't been blessed, but my daughter's friend and my both of my daughters have friends who, in their family, they've had a transgender child who has made the transition, and their family has been very supportive, very
Mm.
affirming. And so I've only been blessed myself with the experiences of hearing good stories of people that I know, thank goodness, from those situations. But I know that there are a lot of stories out there where it's not that way, and it's not
Yeah.
affirm, they're not able to come to their family and figure it out, or together, or be in support of their family being in support of them. And I know
So
I
we
did
live
a
in
little. Oh, go ahead.
where it's being so politicized, right? In several states,
Hmm.
it's being used as a political tool right
Hmm.
before election cycles, so that they can get people riled up and get votes at the cost of people's um, lives, because a lot of the information that is out there isn't accurate when these politicians are coming out and trying to create legislation. Um, and it fuels these parents who don't know. It fuels all those fears, and it's
Hmm.
manipulation. And a lot of people are well-meaning, love their kids, they want to do what's best. They've have not had access to information about gender identity and what it means, um, and they're being manipulated, and it's not fair. You know, a lot of these, it's not as if most parents are bad. It's that they don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's not enough information out there, and and it's ridiculous and sad that that politics even plays a role in something like that. You know, it shouldn't even have anything to do with it, but it's sad to say that it does. Like you just said, the legislation and all that kind of stuff plays a role, and it's confusing, I'm sure, for parents, like you said, there's not enough information out there and awareness. And I think that's one thing that really, like what you're doing with your books and your writing, is awareness. And I think that's one of the thing that we all need to keep on doing, is making people aware that it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to love who you want to love. And just bottom line, that's the bottom line right there.
It's just who you are. I mean, just these bills being introduced and discussed in states are causing suicides right now. Someone will die today. Many people probably. I saw someone this morning that said they lived in a state they couldn't be themselves, and they committed suicide, and the pastor was asking the church to pray for this person. I see this all the time. These are people who just want to be who they are, who the divine created them to be, to love who they want to love. You know,
exactly.
And the society saying you can't be who you are because who you are isn't accepted. Who you are, there's something wrong with that. That causes a lot of pain and a lot of destruction, especially in teenagers' lives. That's the highest number of suicides and homelessness we have are in the LGBTQIA community. And we're doing that as a society, not us, but society and these politicians who want to run for office and win are doing it at the cost of lives. And if anyone that's not true, they just a little bit through the ACLU or something, they'll see the numbers out there. And it's horrifically sad that they climb up some ladder and have a job and leave people dead behind them because of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, when I did a little bit of my research, I'd found statistically it said nearly 1 in 2 people in the transgender community will experience a mental illness like depression or anxiety. And even worse, it said 41% had attempted suicide. And those are big numbers. That is not small potatoes right there. Those are really, really big numbers. And it's just,
you know, I think there are issues that we have as we're transitioning, but I see most of the problem is what's outside of us. You know, the world that we're living in. It's not caused by me being me. Me being me just means I stop acting. I stop pretending to be somebody else, and you don't like it. You know? So
exactly.
You don't like so much life difficult.
Well, and there's all kinds of other internalized problems. I mean, people end up hating themselves. Trans people and queer people in general can, depending on their social training and their, you know, their family of origin and their religious training and all that, they can hate themselves for who they are because they're taught that it's bad in all kinds of different ways, you know. So I mean, how can you be emotionally healthy if you hate yourself, you know?
Exactly. And if you're told to hate yourself, or if you're told it's not okay to be yourself.
Right. That's so damaging. I mean, so it's not shocking that those numbers are that high because there's so much that ends up being internalized. And yes, it is coming from the outside, but all that ends up being forming you. Right. Yeah. Which is just so powerfully poisoning.
It really is. Now, who would you guys say have been your biggest support systems throughout this journey?
Oh boy.
Besides each other, because I was going to say, number one is probably each other.
Yeah, I think probably the online community, wouldn't you? Because,
well, interestingly enough, we started the Word True Love Is movement thinking we were going to help other gay Christians feel accepted and loved and you know, debunk some of the lies that are out there because they're they're a community in a lot of pain. But starting that and being in that community online surprisingly has really helped and fed us. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like you go to help somebody, you get helped back. So I mean, I'll post something. We've got a reach on our page of over 1 million people a week, and I'll post something on there and hope they interact. And their interaction, like, oh, that's good. Mm-hmm. You know, it'll make me feel good. You know, when I'm thinking I'm doing it for you, when you do something for somebody else, it comes back and it helps you. And there are support groups. I'm in a couple FTM groups, and you're in some spousal support groups online
And
where
family ones, yeah.
they talk about things and you can interact. I mean, it's really surprising because I don't really like Facebook that much because of all of the way it's been used, but the groups that are supportive, that are closed groups for transgender people or LGBTQI people or partners or spouses of, they seem really helpful. They seem to be able to put anything out there and talk about it. So you're kind of like in a group session.
Yeah,
There's no
I could see that.
but you're in a group session. So, when you see that someone else has been on the road that you've been down and they survived and this is how they do it, that's always helpful.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's besides each other, that I think that we've had one or two clergy that have been helpful to
that's
us,
true.
that are
Absolutely.
affirming Christian
Okay.
pastors. Yeah, and the kids now coming along and have been helpful.
Right.
Some of them drag their feet, but now they're the grandkids have been amazing. So I think you have to find those people. You got to find somebody.
Support systems are important.
Yeah, definitely. And now I know she said the grandkids have been amazing, and it's so amazing to me. Once again, children, because like I said, I was a preschool teacher, and children have always been my world, and it's just amazing how pure and accepting and just like, oh, okay, sure. Is that how it's gonna be? Okay. Like, just how kids are just so okay with things. And as my
Yeah.
younger daughter, she has her best friend, they're 10 years old, and her best friend's uncle, who used to be her aunt, started to transition, and she transitioned when she was about in 11th grade, and her family had been very supportive, and my daughter, who has been friends with her since birth, kind of went on the journey with her family as a kid, just learning as a child, learning along the way that now Aunt Sarah is now Uncle Leon, and making that transition, and just for the kids to just, oh yeah, no, it's Uncle Leon now, and just okay. And it's just so amazing. It's not the kids that are having the problem. It's us. It's adults.
No.
It's these
Right.
older, should be smarter people that are not getting it, or not putting it together as love, and that it's just love and who you are. And we try to teach our children, be who you are, but then there seems to become kind of constraints on that in our society, though.
Yeah. Within this, you can be who you are, but stay within these lines here.
Exactly. And I'm like I said, I'm hoping that things like this change that. I hope that literature, that the awareness, the online groups, like you said, I think one of the beauties, I always say the internet is a blessing and a curse. And our online social media and all that, it's a blessing and a curse. But at the same time, it is good that behind people can have a voice where they were scared to have a voice before, and they can look for support where they may not have ever found support before, just right in front of their face, or in their physical community right there around them, or their family, or anything like that. So it is good that we do have the internet for that purpose. Like you said, the online community is definitely a supportive crowd. Now, and another thing I want to put out there, because there's so many different ignorant people in the world, is being transgender is not a mental illness. I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions that I've heard in my life, that just blows my mind, and just makes me feel like, how can somebody even fix their mouths to say something like that? And I guess it's, well, one, it's ignorance. Two, it's societal norms that get placed on people and stuff like that. What's your guys' opinion or feel on that?
Yeah, I think the whole issues of sex, so when I'm saying sex, I'm talking about the physical body, right?
Yeah.
And which has a number of things that contribute to maleness or femaleness.
Yeah.
Sorry, that one was out, so we'll might want to pause there for a second.
Sure.
So there's these number of things which contribute to maleness or femaleness. There's the brain structure. There's external genitalia. There's internal organ structures, there's hormonal mixes, there's all these things that contribute to what makes male and what makes female physically. And you've got intersex people is the term for individuals who have a mix of those things. There's also chromosomes. I forgot about chromosomes.
Yes.
So even at the chromosomal level, there are intersex individuals who have the chromosomes of both sexes, right? So that's on the sex side. Then you've got the gender side, which is a social construct that varies across time and across geography. So, the gender rules for us here and now are very different than the gender rules in a particular community in Africa right now, and are very different from, a culture living in Turkey 1,000 years ago, right? All those
Yeah.
norms shift. There's cultures where females are more the power holders, the power brokers. They tend to be more rare, but they exist. And a couple hundred years ago, pink was a color associated with boys because it had a mix of red, which was seen to be associated with anger. And then, that has shifted. So now pink is seen as a girl's color. So this whole concept of gender and what it means is something that shifts constantly, and it's completely sort of made up thing within a society. So you've got this then combination of sex, which is not binary, right? It's not just one or the other. It's made up of this mix of organs and brain structure and hormones and chromosomes, and that people have a mix of. Everyone has a mix of. It's not a pure binary for any individual. Then you've got this gender, which is a made up thing. You put it together, and it's not clear cut, right? You've got this combination of these two things, and people are different. They're all over the place. And however, so right there, when you come to the question of, is it a disorder? No, it's human variation. Just like your hair is sort of wavy and mine is very straight. And your lips are more full than mine, and I'm very jealous because I've got thin lips. If I didn't have lipstick on, it would actually show up and not just
right.
I don't like running, and I'm not at all strategic and athletic. And Declan is extremely athletic and has always been interested in competitiveness. There's all this human variation, and being trans is just one of those things where you've got the society trying to say what a person should be, and saying this is not who I am. That's not a mental illness. That's a societal illness.
Oh, yes, very true. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. I see a lot of fear of the unknown. You don't look the way you should look or act, so there's a fear comes up, and the only way they know how to handle fear is to attack it. And so one of the good things, I think, like Suzanne has a novel coming out this year that has a secondary transgender character in it. Those things need to happen. People need to see Suzanne and I talk to people. Transgender people need to be seen. They need to be in sports, in politics. They need to be writers. You have to get out there so that the people who would be okay with you, but are just living in a place of fear, would fight for you, would accept you. We've got some that are on the other end of the spectrum that no matter what you show them, no matter what you tell them, they're going to stay where they are. And we've always had those people in society. But I tend to feel like people are somewhere in the middle. And if they saw us or heard more about us or read Suzanne's books, or we were seen, in films, books, whatever.
Or music, like you were saying.
The fear would start to
diminish. Music anywhere.
There is a lot of fear. If I showed up with a hairy chest, beating my chest in a pink tutu, people wouldn't get it until they sat down and talked to me and said, okay.
You would never wear a tutu.
I would never wear a tutu. I did wear a tutu. They would have to talk to that person to see that, your appearance isn't going to hurt me. You're a person inside. You've got this. I mean, us being married, people have actually come up to us and said, I used to think that queer people shouldn't be married, but you guys are so happy. There can't be anything wrong with that. That's got to be what real love is. So they're like, oh, maybe I'm okay with that now. So, I mean, you got to be seen, I think, to diminish some of that fear.
I definitely think so. I definitely think that exposure and awareness of things definitely helps the situation out in terms of people being more accepting and loving of everybody. So I think that that's very, I 100% agree with that. Now, where do you guys see the future for your writing going, Suzanne?
Oh gosh, let's see. Well, Declan was mentioning this novel. It's called The Language of Bodies, and it will be out in October of this year. If anyone wants to kind of track um, how to get one, you can email me at sdewitthall@gmail.com, and I can keep you updated. But that is the story of the wife of a trans woman of color who is murdered and her path for vengeance, because she is so heartbroken and angry and feelings of guilt that she's struggling with, that she kind of allowed it to happen,
Yeah.
as if such a be. So that's coming out in October. So I'm always kind of working on novels. My novels tend to be sort of dark and weird and funny and sad,
Ooh, I
and a
like
little
that.
bit magical. They're very unusual. So, I've got another novel in the works, and they all tend to take on some kind of a social or emotional issue. People are all damaged, and so I'm
Oh, yeah.
damaged by life. And also, I'm kind of intrigued by people's backstories, so that offering insights into the whys that they do bad things is something that I tend to incorporate a little bit. So, novel work is one thing, and there's this new Reaching for Hope was the last book, and that's for the trans couples. The one for families is called Holding On to Hope, and that I'm hoping might be out in May. I don't know if I told you that's my goal. I didn't know if I told Declan that. I've always got, kids' books in play for related to gender and identity.
That's so
I
awesome.
think those are the big projects in
That's
the writing world.
speaking engagements, and we've done some college discussions. We talk a lot about the LGBTQ Christian community, but her books are kind of going away from that. When we started, there wasn't very much out there for people, and
Yeah.
over the last 10 years, it has developed to be a lot more out there. So we don't feel as much that we have to lean into that and produce more stuff. We've hit just about everything. Sex with God was one that talked all about sexuality and the harm from the purity culture. So we might not even know what it's going to be, go along with what's happening in society. And then she feels a desire to write about it. So she uses her gifts of writing to help improve that part of everybody's life. So we're not sure where to go. Even your novel is, one of the things that we've seen, and I don't even think you thought about this at that time, but one of the things we see is that the horrific death of transgender people, and people will say a name, say the name, and this is how many people have died. So we all hashtag the name, and then that's all good, and we should. But we don't think about the ripple effect of the death of that person. There was a spouse, there was a mother, there was a father, there were children, there were coworkers, there were friends. There's a ripple effect into the community. And with your book, that ripple effect happens to go to the spouse. I mean, you don't see the spouse's name or the partner's name, but this person in her book was so beloved that one scene she writes where they're really addressing the death and the pain of it, I had to put her book down and go weep, because you just don't think about that other person. I mean, the death is horrific in itself, but that horror is a ripple effect into the community and the world. And when people start thinking about transgender people as people in your community that have all these things in their life, not just a single, I really think they single you out to be some weirdo living in some attic somewhere or something. We are people in the world that have families and lives and pets, and just like everybody else.
Yeah, no,
And
definitely.
that. So she kind of has been flowing with the next issue that she sees.
Yeah.
And it just comes home to you, and you write about it. So
That's absolutely true. So we'll kind of see what comes up next as we're tuning into the Where to Love Is community and the world at large. Each of my books seems to sort of come out of where we're seeing the most pain. It'd be nice to not need to.
Yeah. Yeah, but at
do that.
least
But
through your writing, maybe it'll change people's views, it'll change. And I think that not only is your writing good for your personal community, but for communities that are not aware. Like I plan to definitely now I'm ready to look up your stuff and start reading right now. You've got me very, very intrigued about this story now. I want to know what happens. So I think that
it's fun. It's weird. It involves wax museums, and
oh wow.
there's a haunted hotel is in it. It's got everything.
Oh wow. Okay, good. And you said this is coming out in May?
October.
Oh, October.
So
Okay,
excited.
October. Oh yeah, the family one's in May.
The other book.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, good. Well, I'll be on the lookout for it definitely because it sounds like it's really good. But it definitely needs to be something that these books, all this literature that you're writing is something that needs to be read by everybody, not just not just one particular community. All communities need to read this literature because it'll open up such more of an understanding for everybody to get along better, to be more accepting of each other, to be more supportive of each other, because there's people out there that probably through ignorance alone or don't know anything or don't are blind to a lot of things, and for them to just be able to reach out and read something and maybe just have another take on the matter, maybe that they knew nothing about in the first place. So I commend you so much for doing that, and it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. So thank you for doing that. For
Yeah. Thing is, we started. Her first book was Rumple Pimple, which is about our dogs. You've been hearing barking in the back.
yes,
Rumple Pimple is a wire fox terrier. Was it 7 years ago you wrote Rumple Pimple? And at that time, 25 years ago, there was a book put out. The first of its kind was Heather Has Two Mommies by Leslie Newman, who's a friend of ours now and who has written blurbs for our books. But
oh wow, okay.
in that book, they described that why Heather has two mommies. Well, Suzanne felt it, 7 years ago, it was time for the parents that were a same-sex couple to just be there. Not to explain while they were there, just have them be there because that's the norm. And kids want to see they're just there. And you don't have to explain to the world. I don't have to explain to the world. They're just my parents.
Exactly.
So she did that, and that kind of started that's the foundation for the books and where it went. And now there's two of those and probably more coming because he's an adventure every day. But I mean, when that first come out, we got letters and emails from all over the world saying this book changed my life. This is a children's book.
That's beautiful.
Because they were able to find a book they could read to their children that would help their children understand why mommy wasn't married to daddy anymore and mommy was married to Sue.
Yeah.
And it was okay.
Yeah, no, and that's
okay.
so important. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. I think that's so important for children because they're growing up in a world where they're being molded and society, unfortunately, society has such a big mold on people that we need more resources out there to show that that is not the only way. There's not just one way to live, but there are several ways to live, and you live how you want to live.
That's the representation thing you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, now before I sign off, because I am running out of time here, but I just want to say thank both of you guys for coming onto the show and talking about a subject in the mental health community that people don't really tend to think about. I think sometimes I don't think they realize the repercussions of mental health in the transgender community and the LGBT community, and in general, for anybody that's going through something like this or that's making a change to figure out who they are. I think that people gloss over that, or like you said, Declan, don't even realize that these people have families, they have hobbies, they have pets, they have loved ones, they have jobs, they have coworkers. They're real people that are going through real things that perhaps could have some real mental health issues because of what they're going through. And like you said, also, it might not even be so much that it's an issue with themselves, but it's an issue with how the rest of the world views them. So I thank you guys tremendously for coming on, and I'm hoping that this reaches so many people to open up their eyes as well and open up their hearts, most importantly.
Well, it was great to talk to you.
Pleasure.
And
yeah, you guys too.
Yeah,
Aw,
thanks
thank
for having
you.
us.
Oh yeah, no,
It was a great conversation.
definitely. Yeah, it was an awesome conversation. I can't wait to put it out. I'll when I edit it and everything, I'll send you guys the link and I'll let you know when I'm going to put it up and everything. But I
Great.
have
Well,
to always give my shout outs to my people at the end. So I just want to shout out my friend Jake Dante at Off the Mats podcast. He helps me figure out my podcasting and stuff like that. He's kind of been my mentor along the way here. And Tiana Taylor at BJJ on Instagram, Tiana Taylor _ lowercase t Taylor _ BJJ, a good friend of mine that's come on the show before. And do you guys have any shout outs or and where can we find all your work? That's the most important part right there.
Yeah, wheretrueloveis.com is a website that is, has most of the books. My website is sdewitthall.com because that's my name. The Where True Love Is movement on Facebook, if they just search for that, right?
Right.
Also on Twitter and Insta.
Everywhere. Instagram, Twitter. Our largest platform is Facebook, and that's Where True Love Is. We have movement on it now. We changed it. We just really push love and loving each other. But other people I'd like to give a shout out to that could help our community is close to my heart, being FTM. Finley Games wrote a book, Top to Bottom, which talks about everything that you process of changing yourself if you want to physically as a transgender man. Fox Fisher in the UK. You have people outside of our space that you want to give a shout out
I
to?
think you're a little more connected on that end.
Yeah, there's Lifeline, good, and Trevor Project. Those are all really good places for people to connect.
Good. I'm so glad. And I hope that listeners do connect because we definitely support is definitely a big thing among us humans is supporting each other. And we always need to definitely get out there and support and love each other. So once again, guys, it's been a pleasure. I thank you so much for coming on today. And I'd love to, if I have another topic you guys would love to be on the show, I'd love to have you back.
That sounds great. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of your day, okay?
You
You
too.
too.
All right.
Nice
Take
to meet
care. Nice to meet you
All
guys
right.
too. Take care so much. Bye.
All right.
I know.
Well, guys, that was my interview with Declan and Suzanne DeWitt Hall. Wonderful, wonderful couple. I can't even this interview was really meant something special to me. So I'm listening. It's Q. Let's talk about it with me. You guys know how it goes. I want to thank all my listeners out there once again, and I will be in touch with you guys again soon.